Hi, this is Christian Johnson, C. Johnson Drum, and today I have a spooky Halloween lesson for you. It's about practicing ghost notes on your practice pad when you don't have access to a drum set. So, you, like me, might have trouble getting to a drum set all the time. I actually have noise constraints, and you might have the same noise constraints or space problems, or maybe you're on tour and you want to practice this stuff in your hotel room. The thing is, you're able to practice and get a really great ghost note workout right here on the practice pads that you can take back to your drum set when you have the chance. So, for the uninitiated, what are ghost notes? Let's check out this video real quick. Now, Nate Smith does an amazing job of playing ghost notes in this video. He's got a kick drum, he's got the backbeat on the snare, the hi-hats moving along, and then in between all of it is this little percolating snare drum stuff. These little rhythms that just sound amazing. And they give such great flow and they make the groove big and robust and just feel really nice. So what's he doing? Well, ghost notes are notes that have rhythm but don't have pitch. So if you're playing guitar, that matters, right? You can play a muted note instead of a full note, and there's still a rhythm there, but there's no actual pitch. And it's different from a rest. A rest would create silence. So we're not creating silence. There actually still is a sound, but it doesn't have a pitch. So when you play a non-pitched instrument like drum set or any other non-pitched percussion, what we're looking for really is a de-emphasis in the dynamic. Okay, so we're not going all the way down to silence. We're getting to almost silent, but we're still playing something. There's still something audible there. So if you look at it like a continuum, I guess, or a line, this is maybe where his hi-hat is. Okay, this is a dynamic level where his hi-hat's just chugging right along. His snare and kick beats stand out above the hi-hat. Those are accents. The ghost notes fill in the valleys. And those are de-emphasizing dynamic. They're in there, they're quiet, and they just kind of bubble underneath the surface. This is what they look like when you see them in notation. You'll notice there's a parenthesis around them, because it is possible to write this sort of thing by just using the dynamic mark piano or pianissimo for those notes. But because there happens so often, that's really impractical. It's really nice to be able to put a little parenthesis around it, and then you know, okay, that's a quiet note. That's a really quiet note, and I need to keep it kind of hidden. So now that you know what ghost notes are, let's go into how to practice them on the pad when you're away from the drum set. The first thing I have to absolutely recommend is that you get into practicing your rudiments and rudimental drumming. This might be the only part of the lesson that really needs to be said. The rudiments provide a way for you to get control over your sticks, unlike any of the other parts of this lesson. And the reason being is that rudiments require great mastery over stick height. Okay, now what do I mean by stick height? There are three general basic stick heights. You start with a full stroke. That's a 12 to 15 inch stroke from up here. It goes down and comes right back up. Okay. Then we have a half stroke, which is like 5 to 9 inches in here. It goes down and comes back here. And then you have a low stroke, which is in the 1 inch to 4 inch range. And what you might notice is that playing the sticks from the different heights creates different volumes. And that's because to play from a higher place, you have to give more speed to the stick to get down in time. More speed means more energy means more volume out of the pad. I'm going to do a quick demonstration of a rudimental snare drum piece. I want you to watch my sticks and see how I'm deploying all the different stick heights. This is solo number 1 from Charlie Wilcoxon's All-American Drummer. So, as you may see, there's a lot of different things going on. This piece actually has 3 different stick heights happening, and I'll demonstrate those now with a rudiment that you should be pretty familiar with. It's called the flam. I'll post it right there. Now, a flam has a grace note and an accented note. And what the grace note does is it actually gives length to the sound that we're making. Because we play a percussion instrument, a lot of times the sound is short. By adding a grace note, we actually lengthen the sound of a single hit. So a grace note is made up of 2 different strokes. We have an upstroke, or a pull-out, which starts in a low position, hits the drum, and then bounces back to a full. So you let the stick bounce, and then you have to guide it a little bit because it doesn't quite have the energy to get all the way back up by itself. That's your grace note. The next is a downstroke. You start with a full stroke position, and you leave the stick down after you've played the stroke. Now a flam combines those 2. You have your upstroke, downstroke. And if you play it correctly, your hands end up in a position where you're now able to play another flam. This hand would play an upstroke or a pull-out, and this would play your downstroke. So there we go. Now, because of the control in the sticks, you're able to set yourself up for the next thing. And the rudimental drumming is all about that because it puts you in situations that are difficult to play. And they're helped by being able to control where the sticks end so that you can begin in the right place with the next stroke. The next thing you can try to do uses a rhythm chart that you might be familiar with. If you've ever played through Benny Greb's Language of Drumming or Mark Juliana's book on creativity, they both have this chart. For Benny Greb, it's the letters. And in Mark's book, it's a chart that's in the beginning of the book that was written out for him by his teacher, Joe Bergamini. You can get a copy of the same chart from my website at christianjohnsondrums.com, or you can see it here on the screen real quick. Now, this chart basically tells you where you can play a 16th note within a quarter note beat. There are 4 places you can place it. The first slot, second slot, third slot, or fourth slot. You can play 1 note in any of those. You can play 2 notes in any of those. You can play 3, or you can play 4. And so this chart shows you all those possibilities. What I like to do is to take my right hand and play 8th notes. And while I'm playing 8th notes with my left hand, I fill in and I play through the chart. Now this helps develop independence, and it also helps to develop a solid foundation for the placement of each of these types of rhythms. I'm going to play through that now, metronome 90. And what I'll do is I'll practice the chart first all the way through with my left hand playing ghost notes, and then I'll also add a backbeat so that you can hear that there's actually challenges around that because you'll be going from a ghost note to an accent back down to a ghost note. So you have to have that full range of control of the stick heights like I mentioned before. So here's what this sounds like. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, and then I'll add a backbeat, and I'll try not to mess up the rhythms this time either. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Now, it's really important to remember not to flam. We're trying to get nice, flat double stops here. Play it at a tempo that's real comfortable, and then of course really focus on getting that left hand, or that snare drum hand, a lot lower. Sorry, lefties. So again, use your ride hand, not your right hand, your ride hand, whatever's playing on a ride or a hi-hat, to play eighth notes, and use your left hand to play through these rhythms. Now the next step in all of this is to make the rhythms a little bit more complicated. So I like to use a book. It's called Teaching Rhythm by Joel Rothman, but you could use Ted Reed's Syncopation if that's what you have. And the principle is the same. You keep your right hand or your ride hand playing the eighth notes, but then you use your free hand to play the rhythmic exercises. So I'll flash this on the screen so you can follow along. This is an excerpt from Joel Rothman's Teaching Rhythm, page 29. And again, I'll play this as strictly ghost notes, and then I'll play it again as ghost notes with a backbeat. And this time I'll add the backbeat. Now you'll notice that when I play the backbeat on the pad, I'm actually letting the stick play kind of flat against it, so I get a real pop, and for me that helps simulate playing a rim shot on a snare drum. So again, this is a great way to build some hand independence, because you got your right hand going or your ride hand going nice and steady, but then your snare drum hand you're having to interpret and read and play rhythms, and then not only that, you're actually adding a backbeat too. So being able to do the stick heights properly, get those ghost notes down, and the accents nice and high. Now the final method I'd like to show you uses stick control, which is excellent for so many different types of exercises. And in this, again, it's a spiritual follower to everything I've shown you so far. We'll play a steady eighth note pattern with one hand, and we're going to play the more complicated rhythms with the other hand. Now the reason why I like stick control for this method is because it actually sounds a little bit more like a rock beat, and it seems to be a little bit more applicable once you move to the drum set. Now these rhythms are actually rhythms you've played in some way if you've played through the rhythm chart. But what I like again about this is that it changes up the order of them. There's some variety, and it definitely sounds a lot more like a rock beat. And that's because up to this point, the stuff that we've been doing with the left hand to build independence and dexterity is too busy, typically just too busy to be an actual ghost note rhythm. You wouldn't really sit behind a band at a rock gig and then play teaching rhythm with your left hand. So again, I'll play through this. I'll cut right to the chase with the backbeat, exercises 1 through 6, 90, and pay attention. I think you'll notice that they definitely sound a lot more like rock beats. Here we go. Let me do those last two. I'll play a click, but I'm not going to play my right hand so strongly. Maybe I'll play on my thigh over here and listen to just what the left hand's doing. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. So, like I said, that should sound a lot more familiar to you as a rock beat or a rock applicable ghost note pattern. So there you have it. Those are the ways I like to try to keep my ghost notes in shape when I'm practicing drum pads. You have your rudimental drumming. Like I said, that might be the most important one because you have all those combinations of stick heights and it's very challenging, and it will definitely keep your hands in shape for the drum set. You have the rhythm chart, which will show you all the possible places to play that 16th note. You can get that from my website, or like I said, Benny Greb has a version of it, Mark Juliana has a version of it, and all versions also include triplets, which is great for playing jazz and other situations. So don't only learn 16th notes; you could practice all this stuff with triplets too. From there, you can try to get crazy. Play a rhythm book with your left hand or your snare drum hand while you're keeping time, like I did with teaching rhythm. And then finally, you can just use good old stick control and create some exercises out of that. The thing is, it's really important to remember that this isn't a substitute whatsoever for playing these things on a real drum set. And the truth is, when I'm behind the drums, when I come up with ghost note patterns, it doesn't look anything like this. Those ghost note patterns are based off what my kick drum's doing, what the snare drum is doing. And, we could probably do a separate video on that when I get behind a drum set and how to craft ghost note parts. But for now, this will really help you with the mechanics. And what those boil down to is the ability to play your different heights and different dynamics with one hand and in rapid succession. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, it's ChristianJohnsonDrums.com for any PDFs, lessons, videos, and my drumming blog. Remember to like and subscribe for these videos. Have fun and have a safe Halloween.